Let's take a look at this problem here. The following text is adapted from Nathaniel Hawthorne's 1837 story, Dr. Heidegger's Experiment. The main character, a physician, is experimenting with rehydrating a dried flower. At first, the rose lay lightly on the surface of the fluid, appearing to imbibe none of its moisture. Soon, however, a singular change began to be visible. The crushed and dried petals stirred and assumed a deepening tinge of crimson, as if the flower were reviving from a death-like slumber. So in this case, what we want to know is what does the word a singular most nearly mean? In this case, first thing we want to do, as always, is try to figure out what type of word does this mean in our own words. And in this case, as I'm reading this, we're trying to figure out some sort of unique change, something that is singular and special just to this case. So now let's try and look through and figure out which one of those as that works for. So it's not going to be lonely. So we're not saying anything about an emotion or it's lonely or singular, in that sense. It's not disagreeable. It's not going against something that they're saying before. So it's not B. At the same time, I'm not saying it's an acceptable change. They're not approving or disapproving of this change, but they are saying that it's extraordinary, in that it's unique and that it is special. So in this problem, D is the correct answer. Now let's look at this problem. The work of molecular biophysicist Enrique M. de la Cruz is known for blank traditional boundaries between academic disciplines. The university laboratory that de la Cruz runs includes engineers, biologists, chemists, and physicists, and the research lab the lab produces makes use of insights and techniques from all those fields. So which one of these words best fits the rest of the sentence? And as I read this, he's doing something with traditional boundaries. And then they go on to explain that there's all these different specialists in the lab, including engineers, biologists, chemists, and physicists, groups of people that don't normally work together. So traditional boundaries would say that only engineers work together, only biologists, etc. But it's going beyond that. So we're looking for something that talks about going beyond traditional boundaries. Epitomizing means to specifically demonstrate what they're saying afterwards. So if they're saying epitomizing traditional boundaries, that means that they are really known for those traditional boundaries, which is the opposite in this case. Transcending means to go beyond. So this one could be a good fit, and we're going to star this for now and check the rest of our answers. So we always want to check all of our answers before we land on a final one. Anticipating means that you are expecting something or you're predicting, which doesn't quite fit the context. So we can cross that out. And reinforcing means to, again, similar to epitomize, where it is really giving a strong example of whatever comes next, or really giving a strong example of those traditional boundaries, which again is the opposite of what we want. So we can cross out D, leaving us with B as the correct answer. Now let's look at this problem. The following text is from F. Scott Fitzgerald's 1925 novel, The Great Gatsby. Jay Gatsby was balancing himself on the dashboard of his car with that resourcefulness of movement that is so peculiarly American. That comes, I suppose, with the absence of lifting work in youth, and even more, with the formless grace of our nervous, sporadic games. This quality was continually breaking through his punctilious manner in the shape of restlessness. So in this case, we want to know, what does quality mean? And when I'm reading this, in my opinion, what they're trying to say with quality is a certain trait or something that describes Jay Gatsby in this case. So let's try to find something that means that. So a standard means to set like a certain baseline of something or a certain expectation. And that's not what they're talking about here. So we can cross out A. Prestige means to be held in high regard or is very fancy and and very well desired. Again, could be something in that case that maybe someone considers this prestigious, but not doesn't quite fit with the rest of the passage. So I think we can cross this out. A characteristic, though, that could be something that is like a trait. That could be a synonym. So let's start this one for now and just double check the rest of our answers. An accomplishment means that he achieved something, which which be more of a positive terminology, which isn't what they're trying to describe here. They're just saying it's neutral, it's matter of fact. This is a trait that Gatsby has. So we can cross out D because C is the best and correct answer. When we look at this problem, it says that to develop a method for measuring snow depth with laser beams, NASA physicist Yang Hu relied on blank. identifying broad similarities between two seemingly different phenomena. Who use information about how ants move inside colonies to calculate how the particles of light that make up laser beams travel through snow. So what is he relying on? And then they describe what it is that he's relying on. And what it is you see from the text here, using identifying those broad similarities between two seemingly different phenomena. And then he goes and describes like an example of how ants move inside colonies with how particles of light work when traveling through snow. So two seemingly different things that seem to work in a similar way. So what does that mean? To me, that is something like an analogy, which in this case we can actually see is D. So we're going to store that just to double check the rest of our answers before we confirm that. So it's not a collaboration. Collaboration means like a partnership, which isn't exactly what they mean here. It's the particles of light aren't necessarily partnering with how ants move, so it's not that. An accessory means to be an add-on, almost like you think about wearing an accessory. This is not meant to be that, it's just a different meaning. So we can cross out B. A contradiction means to be the opposite of something, it goes against it, or can't be true at the same time, which is the opposite, actually, a contradiction of what they are describing here. So we can cross out D, and D becomes the correct answer. In this one, it says, a journalist and well-respected art critic of 19th century Britain, Lady Elizabeth Rigby Eastlake, did not hesitate to publish reviews that went against popular opinion. One of her most divisive works was an essay questioning the idea of photography as an emerging medium for fine art. In the essay, Eastlake blank that the value of photographs was informational rather than creative. So what is she doing here? She is making the claim that the value of photographs is more informational than creative. It's not a way to create fine art. So we need to find something that says that she is a believer of this, a proponent, something along those lines. So A says exposing, so she's not bringing this to light. She's not like exposing the truth, so to speak. So this isn't the best use of that word, so we can cross out A. Asserted means to make a claim, which this very well could be what she's doing here. So we can start this one and double check the rest of our words first. So C is discovered, similar to exposed. She's not bringing this up for the first time. She's not the first one to say this. So because of that, we can cross out C. D says that she doubted the value of photographs was informational rather than creative. This is the opposite of what she's actually describing because she felt one of her most divisive works was that essay questioning the idea. So she believes this. So it wouldn't make sense for us to then say that she doubted it. So that leaves B as the correct answer. And this problem says Stephen Hancock's luminous landscape paintings are appealing to viewers but have elicited little commentary from contemporary critics. A phenomenon that may be due to the very fact that the paintings seem so blank. Many critics focus their attention on art that is cryptic or overtly challenging. So we want to know is because critics are focusing their attention on art that is cryptic or overtly challenging, and they're getting little commentary from these critics, that must mean that these are the opposite of cryptic or overly challenging. So maybe something that's simple or that is understandable by the common person. So let's figure out what that is. So A says innovative. Maybe these works are innovative, but that's not what we're trying to talk about here. We're trying to find something that is understandable to the common person. So we can cross out A. B says subversive. Subversive means to be tricky or to kind of have like subterfuge. Like think about like a spy is subversive or being in the shadows. Again, not what they're trying to say here. So cross out B. Profound means to be very, very held in high regard or it's very enlightening. Um, Contemporary critics might find that they might find it very profound, but it's not what we're trying to look for, not simple or understandable to everyday person, which is in fact D, accessible. Accessible means that someone can understand it, they can appreciate it, it's not lost on them. So we can say D is the correct answer. And this problem says in 2008, a complete set of ancient Pesoi glass game beads pieces was uncovered from beneath a paving stone in modern-day Israel. Due to their small size, Pasoya were easily misplaced, making a whole set a rare find. This has led some experts to suggest that the set may have been buried intentionally. However, without clear evidence, archaeologists are left to blank what happened. So, because they don't have clear evidence, they need to guess what happened. or make a hypothesis on something. So which one of these answers best fits that? You can say A, speculate, which means to make a prediction about something. So that could be a potential answer. Let's start this one. B says to dismiss. So to dismiss something means to reject it or to not have anything to do with it. So that's not what it's saying here. They have to make a guess, but they're not dismissing anything yet. So cross out B. C says to expand upon. So they have a base understanding of something, but then they elaborate, give a little bit more detail. Again, not what they're trying to do here. We're looking for something that says something about predicting or making an educated guess. And then D says to catalog. Catalog something means to put in an order or organize, but that's not relevant to the context. So we cross out D. And that leaves us then with A as the correct answer. The following text is adapted from Zora Neale Hurston's 1921 story, John Redding Goes to Sea. John wants to travel far beyond the village where he lives near his mother, Maddie. So it says, John has on several occasions attempted to reconcile his mother to the notion, but found it a difficult task. Maddie always took refuge in self-pity and tears. Her son's desires were incomprehensible to her. That was all. So what does it mean that he's trying to reconcile his mother to this notion? He's trying to get her to appreciate or understand this notion of him wanting to travel far beyond the village. But she, of course, does not necessarily take to this, saying her son's desires were incomprehensible to her, and that was it. And she always took refuge in self-pity and tears. So what does that mean that he's trying to reconcile his mother to this idea? Getting his mother to accept it. That could be something that's close to it. We were saying to understand or appreciate it. But this is a close one, so we don't want to eliminate it just yet. He's not trying to get his mom to apologize for anything. She's not doing anything wrong here. So and he's not trying to get her to apologize for that. So we can cross out B. Same idea. Get his mother to match the notion. That would mean almost like get her to do the same thing as him, but that's not what he's trying to do. So we can cross out C. And then D says get his mother to reunite with the notion. So to reconcile can also mean to reunite in some instances, but that's not what they're trying to say here. They're trying to get his mother to accept. So we can cross out D, and A becomes the correct answer. In this problem, it says business researcher Melanie Brooks and colleagues found that remote video conference meetings may be less conducive to brainstorming than in-person meetings are. The researchers suspect that video meeting participants are focused on staring at the speaker on the screen and don't allow their eyes or mind to wander as much, which may ultimately blank creativity. So they're saying that remote video conference meetings are less conducive, meaning not as good as in-person meetings for brainstorming. So what they're trying to say is this does not allow for as much creativity, so we need to find something that says it's stifling or preventing creativity. So let's figure out which one best means that. A says to recommend, so it's not recommending creativity. That has more of a positive connotation to it, whereas we were looking for something negative. B says to criticize, which has that negative connotation, but you're not criticizing creativity. It's still something that they want. It's just that it's not being accessible. So we can cross out B. Impede means to act as a barrier, which is what they're trying to say here is video screens might be a barrier to creativity or prevent it. So we can cross that one there. And D says to construct creativity, which we're not doing here. We're not constructing or making creativity. Even if that were the case, it's a little bit of a weird way to say it. So D doesn't quite work here, and C is correct. Mineralogical differences are detectable in samples collected from two locations on the near-Earth asteroid Ryugu, but such differences may not indicate substantial compositional variations in the asteroid. Cosmochemist Kazuhide Nagashima and colleagues noted that at the small scale of the samples, the distribution of minerals is unlikely to be what? So they're saying that because you only pick from two small areas on the asteroid, from two locations, those differences may not indicate much compositional variations in the asteroid. So what they're saying here is because you only pick from these two spots, that's not enough to tell the full compositional variations in the asteroid. So what they're trying to say here is that it's unlikely to be the same or consistent throughout. So let's find where that best means at. So it's not neglected. You're not ignoring something or paying no attention to it. Redundant means to be repetitive. So it's similar to that what we're looking for there, but not quite. It means something. This means more repeating as opposed to consistent or the same. So we can cross out B. Same thing with ongoing. It means to be that has more of a time variation to it or time connotation to it. That this is going on indefinitely. But that's not what we're trying to say here. We're looking for something that is in fact D, uniform. And that's the correct answer.